Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Community Connection. And we have in the studio, back from her worldwide vacation,
Worldwide, right?
our very special friend and guest and host, Claudia Fletcher.
Very special friend.
Yeah, did you have a good break?
Had a great break.
Good.
Got to see my kids and grandkids that I don't see very often, and that was really cool.
Yeah, good for you.
Thanks.
You reminded me that something happened this week. We had a special anniversary.
We did. We had the birthday of Vision 30, as we know it.
On July the 3rd.
July 3rd, and I remember that because, sorry, we're getting a little bit of noise from the sound room, and the Melvinator's on vacation, and we have a guest back there that we're not going to name who's talking when he's not supposed to be talking. So that was distracting us.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's right.
Yeah, I remember us having this discussion as senior leadership team. Are we really going to ask the other ministry leads to come on July 3rd when the 4th was a Tuesday and it was a Monday and ask them to come do it? And based on this past Monday, how many people were not working, I can't believe they came in. But we invited them to come join us. Do you remember why we were having the retreat in the first place?
Why? Because we were going to talk about our WIG, our wildly important goal.
Yeah, because we figured out that 4DX was what we wanted to do as an organization.
Yes.
And so we decided
We'd learned about that at Global Leadership Conference. We decided we were going to implement that as a way for us to get better as an organization.
Right. And Jeff had just joined us a few weeks earlier.
Yes.
And so the four of us were going to get together, and he said, why don't we invite the next layer of leadership to join us in this conversation? And that was before we had a ministry council and before we had ministry leads. It was just, we had 4 directors. So Michael Briggs was directing the camp. Mary Beth Burgess was directing what's now the care team that was residential care. And then we had Jim Herron then was the director of Hope for Tomorrow Counseling. And then Patrick was the director of Safe Families. And so they were our 4 ministry leads, but we didn't start calling them that until after that day.
That's right, yeah.
And then after we met that time, we thought, boy, we should be meeting with this group more often. So we called it the Ministry Council because we were inviting the ministry leads. But all of that, but before that day, didn't exist. So it's kind of cool how much changed in that one day.
And if we had not done that, right, or decided to take an extra long weekend, we may not have even come up with a thing called Vision 30.
Right. So it was 6 years ago on Monday that we had that meeting, and it was offsite. And
Well, we've not been doing Vision 30 for 6 years. We've only been doing it for 3.5. So what's the difference?
well, part of the difference is that we added Jeff Nix to the mix, right? And so doing something before you're ready is not his style. It's you and me. Our style is we'll let everybody figure it out. We have a great idea. Go figure it out. We'll start tomorrow. And we had his input saying, let's slow this down and let's get ready. And so we decided to prepare for that. So we had pre-launch tasks. Remember those?
Task. We were going to take 2 years.
Yep, 2 years to get ready. And so we had each person had a task to get us ready for that we reported on for those 2 years as we prepared for the launch.
So one of the benefits that 4DX would say would be the outcome of having a wildly important goal was that it would improve the organization. And that's a perfect example, right? We created this extra layer of leadership that's still very much a part of the decision-making process. And we took 2 years to improve everything that we thought needed to happen before we launched this incredible vision. It slowed us down. It gave you and I the patience, right, to count all the beans, to make all the steps, to do all the improvement. So,
remember who was in the room? I mean, what did we all have in common that inspired the goal? Do you remember that?
True. Yeah, it was pretty unique. Every single one of us had been foster parents or adoptive parents or had been house parents, right? We had been taking care of other people's children. That was unique.
And I think, too, that we had all experienced the pain of watching what the foster care system can do to children, what happens when those kids age out.
Yes.
And we're all passionate about making sure that didn't happen, and we're approaching that in different ways.
Right. And that was before we had made the decision to move off campus. So in many respects, Vision 30 helped us make this really hard decision
Right.
Because we realized that we were doing the same thing foster care was basically doing. We were taking care of kids who then were aging out with no long-term prospect,
Right.
not a forever family. And so why
Yeah.
would we want to keep doing that?
Right. Because their outcomes weren't much better. Some of them did better than what happens when kids age out of foster care, but a lot of them didn't. Or they would go back home to families who hadn't changed, and their behaviors would go back to what they were before they came to us. And so we were realizing it just wasn't
Yeah.
making as much sense for us to continue to do that. So we started that journey as well. Do you remember what we first called it?
Why'd you have to bring that
Because
up?
I want to mock you.
I know. Thanks. Go ahead and mock. You come back from vacation, so I allow you.
You allow me
mock.
to mock.
You
So,
get one mock. Go ahead.
0 cubed. It was Mr. Day's great idea with the idea of what 0 kids away. I don't know. The 3 things were child or family, community, and church,
Yeah,
right?
Right.
And we wanted, I don't even remember why it was 0 cubed, but when we first started talking about it, people were trying to do the math
Yeah.
and they were like, well, 0 cubed 0, and this doesn't make any sense, and you don't cube 0, and why are you calling it? So I came back and said, we got to change the
Yep.
name of this. But I remember being super inspired. Remember which famous person you brought up when we started talking about this?
Yeah, I had been reading a book on the speeches of JFK, of President Kennedy, and there
Right.
was this great speech about going to the moon and back.
I'm going to find that quick. I have it set up.
Because we were in that space of talking about visions and having this wildly important goal and what that speech did for the nation.
Right. So this is what JFK said. He said, why do we go to the moon? Or why will we go to the moon? We choose to go to the moon in this decade and to do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win. And I think you brought it up there and says, what if we had a decade-long goal that was huge, that would require us all to be better in order to make it happen?
Which broke all the rules of 40X. But
Oh, well.
our first time out of the gate using it, we said, forget about an annual wig. Let's do a decade wig.
Yeah. And then it got confusing for a while. But now, just based on what we've learned, all of you at Patrick Henry and your wigs this year, your team wigs are great. Like the amount of improvement that everybody's made with that process is really cool. But we started out, though, with some language that was pretty jarring to people, and we've done a better job of that. Do you remember the conversation when you were in Richmond? So this is what happened, people. I'm still on the same mock. Like
Oh,
this
no.
This is not a remock. This is the same. So I was in Richmond talking to the director of social services, who had overheard Mr. Day at a meeting, and I was telling him about this vision that we had early on. And he said, I already know about it because I overheard your CEO talking to somebody at a meeting, and he said that you wanted to obliterate the child welfare industrial complex. So we started out with some language that was a little
Yeah.
bit more jarring to people. But the interesting piece is there isn't anybody that I've met at DSS who doesn't want to make foster care obsolete, right?
Right.
They don't see themselves as being out of a job. They see themselves as being able to do prevention and care for families. There'll still be work to be done. But the idea of not having to remove kids and put them into foster care is not something that is against what the DSS workers want to do. They love the idea of making that happen and work with us to do that.
Yeah. So Kennedy said in his speech that they would do this hard thing because it would energize them and organize them to a common goal. And we've seen that happen for us in the organization, right?
Right.
It has made us better. We're stronger. We have a better culture. We're better prepared, certainly more focused. Now, all the wigs always have to do with how is that going to advance Vision 30. But Vision 30 is way bigger now than us, right?
Right, and that's what it was supposed to be. But I think the interesting piece is we were not known for being collaborators at all. I think part of it was just the give me liberty or give me death foundation of what the Boys and Girls Homes was. It was the idea of we're going to do things our way. Nobody's going to tell us what to do.
That's right.
And we don't need anybody else's help to do it. And we didn't to do
Right.
what we were attempting to do then, right? We were a very, very closed system. And so we didn't collaborate well with a lot of people. And so
And now that's probably one of the best outcomes of Vision 30 is the growth and collaboration between us and other organizations, but really within the community itself. We're seeing a level of collaboration we've not seen before. In fact, you recently shared a quote that DSS head in Bedford said about how far this organization's come in regard to collaboration, right?
You should have prepared me to remember this quote before now, because I have
right.
no idea what you're talking about.
That's right.
But I think that we've seen, with the gathering, it gets better every time. People are more engaged. There's some people who have said it's their favorite collaborative event that they attend every month. It grows. It's getting better. The people on the Connect team that do that keep making it better. It's now a committee that's not just Patrick Henry Family Services, of people who are making it happen. And then in 2019, before we launched, we had this vision, and I remember you teasing Patrick about it's your job to awaken the church.
Yes. And we're talking about Patrick Neff, for those who don't know Patrick.
Patrick. In fact, he'll be with us at all staff and be our guest in Community Connection in August. He lives in Georgia now. But we had no idea how we were going to do that. We knew that a meaningful relationship between people in churches and families in crisis was going to be the key to making Vision 30 happen. Right. If every healthy family in our community would claim one family and commit to that family for the rest of their lives, we could make this whole thing go away. I mean, Lynchburg is not void of Christians, right?
Right.
It's not void of churches.
If we can't do it here, we can't do it anywhere.
And that was one of the things that inspired our WIG, was that Dave Anderson from Safe Families had told us that after he visited us. It was his vision to see a community that could actually make foster care obsolete. He didn't use that word, but he said, and if you can't do it in Lynchburg, Virginia, there's no place in the world you can do it. And so that kind of motivated us as we got ready for this as well. So I think that not having a clue how we were going to do it, and then finding out about Care Portal and going to Kansas City and hearing that they had been dreaming up the same idea. Meaningful connection is the same wording they use. They had 3 circles. They didn't call it Zero Cube, but they had 3 circles, the same circles we had, the same language. They had what they called a community gathering every month. We were already doing the gathering. It was as though we were reading out of the same playbook.
We apparently both got the same memo from God.
Yes.
Right? If God's doing something, it's not going to be it's going to happen. It's going to rise up in His church, and we saw that. And that was happening at the same time, not knowing that they were building the technology that would help make this possible. And that Patrick Neff, who we'd used to say, Patrick, you got to awaken the church. That's your job, buddy. Awaken the church. He'd turn pale, like, how am I going to do that? And now he's down in Georgia working with Care Portal.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So the whole thing, the whole full circleness of it, but in being able to use Care Portal, and some people get really confused. They think Care Portal is a program, and Care Portal will tell you it's not a program. Care Portal is a connecting technology, and what it is, it's what powers us and fuels us with Vision 30. It's the technology that we use to make it happen, but it's just a piece of tech. It's like Gmail. There's not a Gmail movement. We all use Gmail, right? There's not a Care Portal movement. It's different nonprofits like ours who have the same vision, and it's been fun to connect with people across the country that have that vision, and they use the technology to make it. So Care Portal is not its own program. It's the technology that's making Vision 30 possible. It's the technology we're using to make those connections in the community that are going to make Vision 30 happen.
So we've been doing it for 3.5 years. Besides collaboration and a sense of growing synergy in the community over this same vision, where do we stand? What are we doing well? What do we still need to work on?
Well, part of the thing we didn't mention is that we were going to launch on June 1st of 2020.
Oh, yes. We got delayed a little bit.
Yes. And so part of the challenge with numbers, and if we're using our only measurement as the number of kids in foster care, it going down, COVID has messed up those numbers significantly. And so the question is, are we less kids in care than we were when we started? Yes. Are we as far along as we want to be? No. But the question we'll never have the answer to is, what would the numbers be like if it wasn't for Vision 30? Because there's no way of knowing that. So I think we're making progress. There are kids who are not going into foster care because of the efforts of
Yes.
Vision 30. There are kids in our care programs, kids in our camp programs, our therapists, people focusing on that is making a difference. But whether or not we can measure where we would be without it, that's the hard part.
Yeah. So we still have some time to adjust. What do you think needs to happen? Is there any major thing or even smaller things that we could do right now to improve the likelihood that Vision 30 will become a reality?
We always need to. Everybody has to find out about it, and so there's the constant need for all of us to mention Vision 30 as many times as we can wherever we go, because it's going to take everyone getting plugged in. And it can't just be a few people that talk about it. It needs to be everybody. So, we've had guests on the show now that don't work for us, but they talk about Vision 30 all the time, right? Because it's part of who they are now. And they're having those conversations. And so we need, I think, one of the tasks we said we needed to have was massive buy-in. And we still don't have massive buy-in. So 3.5 years later, lots of people have heard of it, but everybody hasn't. And more importantly, not everybody knows what their place is at the river. So I think just continual awareness from all of us as a community to talk about it wherever we are and wherever we go, I think is a big need. And then have everybody be willing to do something.
Yeah.
And a Vision 30 activity outside of work hours that they're doing as people, and I'm not just talking to our staff, I'm talking about everyone.
Everybody.
And one of the things that I talk about at the gathering when I have a chance to discuss this is that everybody that comes to the gathering is at least two things, if not three. They're a human. That's a given. If they're not, we're in trouble. They're an employee somewhere, and they're a member of a church. So they have, some of them aren't members of churches, but everybody's a human and everybody has a job. And so looking at that through the lens of what can I do for Vision 30, not just in my job and not just
Through my church.
through my church, but as a person, as a neighbor,
Right.
as someone who goes to Walmart with the people that live down the highway from us.
Yeah.
How do we connect in those ways? And all of us as a community are going to have to be willing in all those ways to do something related to Vision 30 in order for it to make it happen.
All right. Well, what we're describing is not an organization. It's not an institution. It's certainly not a program. It is a movement. Movements are different, right? And any movement often starts slow and gains momentum. And so while it looks like things are slow, we're still essentially in the beginning of this, right? And it's like a train. Gaining speed, it will take time to build. And we trust that God started this, and He will finish it. And in the end, hopefully we'll all be better
Right.
for it, right? That's the whole purpose.
So we're going to switch gears for a second, and I understand that you are developing quite a relationship with artificial intelligence.
It's the only intelligence that I know now is artificial intelligence. Actually, I think that's a kind of misnomer. It's still human intelligence. Right? It's human language built by humans, so as a artificial intelligence would be like alien intelligence, right? It'd be communicating in different forms or whatever. But yeah, so I started getting on ChatGPT and using it for editing. Just found it was just a really quick way for it to edit something that I've written. I can put down a thought, but grammar's like math. It doesn't always add up right, and punctuation, all that. So I found it was just spitting out back to me the content that I'd written in a much better way. And then I started asking it for feedback. Well, give me some feedback about that. And they would tell me what they thought I was right about or what I thought it thought I was wrong about, and I should consider certain things. So I started running this idea of Vision 30. Every child with a faithful family.
Every child.
Every child with a thriving family supported by a faithful community. And then later I added, and an engaged church. All right.
Okay.
So I just asked it one day. I said, what do you think of this vision? And basically wanted to know more. And so we started defining what a thriving family was. So I'd write some things, and it would spit back some things. Have you considered this? So at one point I write, let's rewrite that, including the 5 protective factors,
Okay.
right, which we have a training on the 5 protective factors. It knew immediately what I was talking about. So now we define it. We had a definition of thriving families. This is all in the same conversation, so it remembers the conversation. And now it's talking the language. So when I say thriving families, it knows exactly what I mean. So then we started working on faithful community. So now it knows exactly what I mean when I say faithful community. And so then we talked about engaged church. So after we did that, I asked this question. What would be the outcomes? This is literally the question I asked it. What would be the outcomes if one generation of children were raised in thriving families, supported by faithful communities and engaged churches? And it spit back. It said there will be 6 important benefits that would occur if this vision was realized. And I'm going to read just briefly a synopsis of these 6 benefits. It said, benefit number 1, there would be a stronger sense of belonging and community. And it went on to say, children raised in thriving families and supported by engaged communities and churches would likely experience a strong sense of belonging. They would grow up with a network of caring individuals who share common values, beliefs, and a sense of community. And the sense of belonging can provide emotional support, a sense of identity, and a feeling of connectedness to something larger than themselves. Oh, wow. But then the second one blew me away. The second benefit said there would be moral and spiritual development. Now, I didn't think artificial intelligence had any kind of faith perspective, but it has this concept that faith is important to healthy communities, because it said this. It said, engaged churches can play a significant role in moral and spiritual development of children. Through teachings, rituals, and shared values, children can develop a strong moral compass, a sense of purpose, and a foundation for ethical decision-making. This can positively influence their character, behavior, and how they engage with the world around them. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Benefit number 3, there would be an enhanced social and emotional skills. Thriving families and engaged communities can provide children with opportunities for social interaction, collaboration, and empathy development. Engaging with others in supportive and value-driven environments foster the development of strong social and emotional skills. This includes skills such as effective communication, conflict resolution, and teamwork, which are essential for building healthy relationships and navigating the complexities of social interactions. Number 4, community service and social justice. Here it includes the church again, the particular role church is. What I was amazed about this, if we left church out of this, it had a different answer. Adding the church. So here was another one. That an engaged church often emphasizes the importance of service to others and social justice. Growing up in such an environment can instill a sense of responsibility and a desire to make a positive difference in the world. Children raised in these settings are more likely to engage in community service and actively contribute to the well-being of others. Number 5, emotional support and resilience. Thriving families and faithful communities provide a support system that can enhance emotional well-being and resilience in children. Having caring and reliable individuals to turn to during times of difficulty can provide emotional support and help children develop resilience in the face of challenges. This support system can contribute to their overall mental health and well-being. And then lastly, and this is the one I love the most, intergenerational continuity. When children are raised in thriving families, there's a higher likelihood of intergenerational continuity. The positive values, practices, and teachings passed down from parents, communities, and churches can be carried forward by the next generation, reinforcing a cycle of thriving families and engaged communities. So my next question was obvious to me. What would be the financial benefit to a nation that had one generation that was raised by thriving families who were supported by faithful communities and engaged church? And it listed a whole bunch of things. And I said, is there any way that you can summarize? give me a financial, give me a number. And it just came back and said multiple trillions of dollars.
Wow.
So that is if one generation that could be raised that way. So Vision 30, I think, is awakening us to this possibility. Now, it goes on to caution me about the realities of this.
Right. Of course.
But so we're not suggesting that we're going to create a utopia. Utopias, right? Plans for utopias have always failed. We humans build systems, and systems are as broken as people are. The thing we got to remember is that people have a spark of divinity in them. Systems do not. And we're always trying to save a system. And systems are horribly broken. The only value that systems have are the people that those systems serve and the people who are in them serving the system. That's the system itself means nothing. They can come and go. They're broken. But it's the people. So, in a sense, if this artificial intelligence basically said that Vision 30, right, the key is making sure children are with thriving families. And those families need the support of a faithful community. And that faithful community needs the spark of engaged church. That's Vision 30, right? And this beautiful idea that we could save multiple trillions of dollars. Because after it told me this, I said, well, who would be, right? What would be the obstacles? Who would be opposed to such an idea? And it listed all the people who are running systems today, right? Who make money serving that, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's our challenge. It's going to be hard to see. We're such a systems, right? We're a race of people who believe in systems that we can somehow create something that's going to fix everything. And in the end, we got to remember as Christian believers, we got to remember we're all horribly broken. The world's horribly broken. And we're not going to fix that outside of faith in Jesus Christ. But in this world, the things are going to be broken. So the best thing we can do is build resilience in children, make sure families are nurturing to those children and that they have the support that they need. And the church is in there, right, adding the salt and the light to all of this. So it really goes back to an ancient vision that Jesus had, right, about going to all the nations
Yep.
and doing this. So I said, what would you name the strategy?
Huh.
And it came up, it said, let's call it Generation Thrive.
Whoa. Okay.
So for now, it's a little better than Zero Cubed. But so I'm just calling it Generation Thrive. So I've been working on this document. I hope to have a nice full presentation at the October staff meeting with some PowerPoints. I do have a slide Liam's going to pop up real quick as we get ready to close. This is a picture of an ecosystem, right? We all know about the biological ecosystem and kind of how it works, right? Nature has its own system, And if it's healthy, it maintains itself. Every piece has a part, right? It's all working. But then it usually breaks apart because humans come in and do something artificial and dam rivers and start forest fires and do all kinds of things. So basically, I'm thinking, what if Generation Thrive was about building a cultural ecosystem where every child could grow up in nurturing environments, right? Based on kind of the natural created order that God has. So that's what it is. And I think it may be how we express or develop kind of the next level of Vision 30, where everybody's got a part, not just a part to play, but they got decisions they need to make. All right, before they decide to be a parent, am I going to be the kind of parent that's going to nurture children? If I'm going to live in the community, am I going to be the kind of member of this community that's going to support families? When you came back, and we'll close with this, when you came back from vacation, you posted something on Facebook I thought was pretty amazing, right? You stepped in that river a long time ago, adopted 12 kids from hard places so that they would have a forever family. Tell me about side A and side B real quick.
So right before our oldest grandchild was born, my husband heard a sermon that said, sometimes you have your life planned out and you think it's your side A. And for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, there used to be these things called 45s, and the hits would go on one side of the vinyl, and on the other side, so the side B was some song nobody cared about, right? And so the sermon was saying, if you sometimes you think you know what your hit is going to be in your life. It might be your profession. It might be your parenting. It might be some dream you have, and you think that's it. Mm-hmm. But when you get into your life, you find out God had a completely different purpose, and that your hit single is really something completely different.
It's the side B that you've been ignoring for a long time.
The side B that you've been ignoring or not even thought about, mm-hmm. right? Or didn't even exist at the beginning. Mm-hmm. You know, when you come out of college, this is what I'm going to do. And so right before my granddaughter was born, my husband said, I wonder if our grandkids are going to be our side A. Mm. And so when I came back from watching the ones I don't get to see very often interact, watching my kids parent, watching my daughter and my sons be good aunts and uncles to their nieces and nephews, watching how that generational cycle had been broken, mm-hmm. it was just so powerful to me to say, yeah, this is probably it. This generation is our side A, even though we're not in control of it. We made it possible because none of those kids would exist if we wouldn't have adopted their parents, because they wouldn't have met their significant other or their spouse to make that child. And so in doing something, adopting kids so that they wouldn't age out of foster care or age out of an orphanage, we actually created a new generation of people. And none of my grandkids, we have 12 of them, none of them are in foster care. And that's really cool. There you go.
Right, so Generation Thrive, Vision 30 is going to be about individuals saying, like a lot of folks aged out of foster care, they're going to say, I'm going to be the generational breaker so that I can raise a generation, right, this way.
So they can thrive.
So we can thrive. That's what it's all about. But it's going to be a movement.
And it's great being a part of it.
Isn't it, though? Love this, love this. Hey, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you sticking with us on listening to this conversation. We're just in the beginning. We've still got lots to do, miles to go. See you next Thursday.
Nobody gets to choose their family. If a person is fortunate enough to be born into a healthy family, then life can be much like floating down a smooth, gentle river in the summertime. But an unhealthy family is like a dangerous river, filled with rocks, debris, and fast-moving water. This river swiftly leads to the steep waterfall of adulthood, tragically forming a new river of dysfunction. Even if you aren't born into an unhealthy river, there are many streams that cause a person to get there. But there is only one way to get out, and that is through a meaningful relationship. Across our region, there are many agencies, churches, and families who are devoted to helping children escape from unhealthy rivers. Some feel their role is to wade in and rescue children. They foster, adopt, or provide safe families. Others stand by the river and support the rescuers by providing what they need. Still, others are upstream, and stand in the gap to keep children from ending up in the negative situations. At Patrick Henry Family Services, we see ourselves as having an additional role. We are running up and down the shores of the unhealthy river, screaming, "Can't you see the children in the water? You have to do something." Vision 30 is a 10-year initiative. By 2030, we envision a region where all children are safe in their own family, or with caregivers who are supported by a local faith community. So, where do you stand at the river? Are you upstream, keeping families together and strong by standing in the gap? Are you in the river, directly impacting children? Are you on the shore, providing support for the brave folks who have entered the river? Or are you just passing by without noticing? No matter who you are, come down to the river with us. Let us help you find your place. Not only will lives be changed, but you will never be the same.